Amidst all the uncertainties of life, one thing is inescapably certain, and that is we will all have to make decisions as long as we live. It doesn't matter how uncertain things are. You can guarantee yourself that if there's one thing that is certain, that each of us will be making decisions. The only time you stop making a decision is when you die. Matter of fact, all that we have become, all that we are, was because of a decision that we made. You see, every decision made carries a consequence. And you are who you are and where you are because of a decision that you made. It begins from way back when you were a toddler, right up to your educational pursuit, your family pursuit, whatever it did, it's because of a decision. Sometimes it's a good decision, sometimes it's a bad decision. And we are who we are because of the situation that we actually found ourselves in. Now, they are not always good decisions, neither are they always bad decisions. And that's why it is so very important that we come to a place in our lives when we understand how important decisions are. And because a decision determines who you become, who you are, what you have, what you don't have, if you're going to succeed or you're going to fail, we can't afford to make decisions in an ad hoc manner. There has to be a deliberateness in making our decisions. We got to become determined. Neither can we wait until we face a crisis to make a decision. Some people live their life having no concern at all, and we just simply say, look man, que sera, sera, what will be, will be. And if something is to happen to me good, it will happen. If something bad, it will happen. And we just simply float around, hoping that the best may happen. But a time does come, beloved, when each of us need to sit down and resolve that whether or not certain circumstances develop, this is the line of action that I will take. This is the way I'm going to handle it. You don't wait until you are in a jam, until you are back up against a wall to decide to make a decision. You have to come to a point where you say, whether it rains or it doesn't rain, whether things are favorable or they are unfavorable, I am resolved that this is how I'm going to conduct myself. This is the path I'm going to take. This is the pursuit I'm going to go after. We call that resolve. And I'm looking at the word resolve not as a verb, but as a noun. Okay? Bear that in mind. Resolve. Let us all say resolve. Again. You see, beloved, a resolve is when you come to a point in your life when you are so determined, when you have made up your mind, when you have brought everything into focus, the pros and the cons, and you know in your heart and your soul, irrespective of what anybody says or anybody does, this is how you're going to behave yourself, and this is the path you're going to take, and that is the pursuit you're going to go after. I call it resolve. Now, there's virtue in resolve. Now, what does it really mean to have a resolve? First of all, it is a firm mental decision or intention. And I emphasize that firm. It's a firm mental. Now, it means, therefore, you are in control of your resolve. You are not being cajoled into resolving. You are not being forced. You are not being taken hostage. You have actually sat down and brought all your faculties into the process, and you make up your mind. It is a firm mental decision or intention. It is a resolute determination. In other words, it's a stubbornness. And the reason why I am emphasizing that and why I am trying to make it a point is because the time does come when we can't afford to allow ourselves to be like a cloud driven by the wind. If we did that, we find ourselves being like a yo-yo on a string, being pulled by everybody, leading ourselves to everybody's opinion to a point we don't know who we are. We don't know who we are. We don't know how we ought to behave. In other words, we don't seem to have a character. And we become what we say many times, yes men. Somebody said the sun is dark. You say, yes, man. The moon is red. Yes, man. God is dead. Yes, man. God doesn't live. Yes, man. In other words, you don't have a mind of your own. And what I want to emphasize here in resolve, you can't afford to not to have a mind of your own. And that's why God made us to call moral beings. That even we who are made by God can decide to resist God. You have that authority. You have that power to tell God, get out of your business. You have the authority to curse God if you want to curse God, and God will let you live, you know, because He made you a free moral agent. Not that I'm saying you should curse God, but I'm trying to emphasize here that you have that ability because God has made you different from the animals. And that's why we have to come to a point, and in particular, with the future that faces us, nobody in the world has any idea as to what will happen in 2021. We thank God for 2020. We survived. We took the most vicious punch of the devil, and we are here. You know why? Because God sustained us. And I pray to God it will never happen again. But it may happen, you see. You know why? Before we enter into 2021, we need to resolve in our mind. We need to have a resolve that whatever happens, Sister Staples sang that song, I've made my choice for her forever. And whatever happens, Jesus, I will go through. It matters not. The mountain can move like in Psalm 46. The earth can tremble. The sun can refuse to shine for a whole day. It does not matter. We can see snow and ice in our country, which is unusual. We got to resolve that whatever happens, I will serve God. This is what I will do. This is how I will behave myself. And so, beloved, resolve is very important. And I want to emphasize upon your heart tonight that you can't afford to allow yourself to be pushed along by people's opinions and people's sense of value. You have to identify your sense of value and your opinion. In other words, God wants you to have a mind of your own. I remember my mother, when she was leaving Venezuela to go to live in London, she came to Trinidad and she spent a few time with us, my wife and I. We didn't have any children as yet. I can't remember how long she spent with us. But one day she looked at me and she said, I want to talk to you. And we sat down and she said, I want to thank God for you that you have a mind of your own. I want to thank God that you are stubborn. Because he said, we did everything to try to stop you becoming a preacher. They even told me if I become a preacher, I will have no family. Did everything to dissuade me. He said, thank God I've come to Trinidad and I've seen how you live. I've heard people talk about you. Your name is being called in the marketplace, in the stores, on the radio. Talk about Pastor Anthony. He said, thank God that you had a mind of your own, that you took a stand. He said, today, while Sidney, your brother, is an engineer, he said, the one who makes me feel proud is you. And he said, I want you to say, my son, forgive me for what I did to try to change your mind. He said, thank God you did not. And I thank God for that also. I had to resolve, irrespective of the pressure they gave me, of the threat they gave me, of the ultimatum they gave me. I had to resolve that nobody will stand in the way of me fulfilling the mandate that God had put upon my life. And why is it so important? Because, you see, beloved, it will determine your mode of response, whether reactive or proactive. You see, to act reactively, it lacks sober thinking. When you're going to react, you're like a yo-yo on a string. They pull, you go. They stop, you stop. You just could be turned around by everybody. And you find yourself pleasing everybody. And everybody can't get you to do what they want to be done. They tell you sit down, you sit down. Dance, you dance. Jump, you jump. Skip, you skip. Because you are reacting. In a reacting response, you don't have time to do sober thinking. And at most, you act irrationally. Like somebody who have no common sense. And when it's honest, my God, you mean I did that? You mean I said that? I behaved like that? You become irrational. You lose your sense of sensitivity. You lose your sense of soberness when you are reacting. But when you are proactive, you take charge of the situation, weighing all the pros and the cons and making the decision with a sober, objective mindset. Now, this doesn't mean you can't take people's advice. Sometimes some folks say don't take advice. That's not true. You gave me an advice, I thank God for it. I may put it on the shelf. Because at that point in time, it is not right for me to implement it. But it does not mean I didn't take the advice. A time does come and I say, all right, what you told me last year or 2 years ago, I believe that time is right for now to put into action. But the point is, you got, when you resolve, beloved, people can't push you around. You don't go about trying to get, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? So a young man wanted to get married. And he loved Mary. I tell Mary, I love you, bad, 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 bad. And the girl take his word. Then he has a good little friend. The fellow, she doesn't suit you, You think so? No, she doesn't suit you. And the girl come and tell Mary, Mary, I changed my mind, My mind changed. And he go to about 25 different women because he has to take the one that everybody think that is good enough for him. Or everybody think the man who is good enough for her. And she goes around and she does everybody else's bidding. But what do you want? What do you want in your own life? You got to have what you call this proactive mindset. Because you got to resolve. You got to resolve. Resolve also helps you to offset the compromising of one's life values. When you refuse to have resolve, you compromise your own self-values. You are more prone to fulfill somebody else's value. But what value do you set for yourself? What are the guidelines you set down that this is how I want to behave? This is how I want to act. This is what I want to become. And when you refuse to resolve, you compromise your own self-values. And as we do that, let's look at that guy. Look at the Bible, Daniel chapter 3. And verses 14 to 17. Daniel chapter 3. I want us to read a few of those verses there before I comment on that. Daniel chapter 14. I will look here because the light of the someone called it to shine. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not you serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if you be ready, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the dulcimer, the psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the image which I have made, well. But if you worship not, you shall be cast the same hour into a midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hand? Leave it up there for a little while. You know this story quite well. That Nebuchadnezzar became too big for his pants. After God had used him to become who he was, he forgot God. He began to play he's now God. So he made a very huge image on the plain that almost reached the sky, and made a declaration that from all tribes and language and tongue will come for the great day of dedication. And when you have all the tremendous paraphernalia and the music being played, everybody got to bow down and worship. And the day came, and there were hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Because remember, at that time, Babylon was the world power. It was the Gentile world power. So from all parts of the world, under the Babylonian flag, they came. Get your mind to see the whole scenario. And then all the soldiers in their white uniform, their belts, and it was just simply out of this world for the pageantry. And then the time came when the music began to play. You could have heard the music reverberating on the mountain, coming back down in the valley. And every man like one body just simply bowed and began to worship the image representing Nebuchadnezzar. But three boys, there were three princes who came from Judah in the captivity, and they refused to bow. And the king was told, there are three Hebrew boys here who refused, king. And the king said, all right, I will give you another chance. Now that was strange. You see, the king was giving them a chance to compromise. So I'll give you another chance, because this was being cast into a burning furnace. He said, all right, I'll give you one more chance. Just for your sake, the music will be played again. And you have the last opportunity to bow down. And if you did not bow down, you'll be cast into the burning fiery furnace. I wanted to put up now how those boys answer him. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king. I want you to pay attention here, please. Because sometimes we get the wrong interpretation here. I want to pay attention. O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not mindful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, pay attention, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve your God, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Now, that last verse has caused a lot of misunderstanding. This is how some folk interpret it to mean. They say that the boy said, O king, we ain't going to bow, because our God can deliver us. But if he does not deliver us, we wouldn't bow. That's not correct. That's not correct. What they are saying, the God, king, you gave a threat. We are not going to serve your God, because the God we serve will deliver us. There's no doubt in the mind of the boy that God will deliver them. That's a foregone conclusion. When they say, but if not, what they say, O king, even if you change your mind and you take away your threat to cast us into the fire, we still ain't going to bow. You get the point? Even if you change your mind, if the threat to be cast in the fire does no longer exist, we are still not going to bow down. In other words, we are not going to compromise our belief in God. Our value system is that, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord. Thou shalt have no other God before me. God has told us we must not bow down and serve. And no threat of fire, no threat of burning could make those boys bow. And they said, even to change your mind. You know what it is? They had a resolve. They did not wait until the circumstances change to make up their mind. You see, beloved, when that happens, and you have to wait the circumstances, the pros and the cons, you put yourself under a lot of pressure. because you will find yourself acting out of character. You get the point? You could act out of character. But when you resolve, before any crises arise, before any situation come on the scene, when you resolve that this is what I'm going to do, you have already said amen. You put a full stop and nothing will change that. Let's look at Daniel chapter 1. Daniel himself, the writer of the book of Daniel, and verse 8. Daniel. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Now, these guys, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel, they were princes. And the king observed that there was something special about these guys. And so he put them in a particular area where they can actually be taken special care of. The chamberlain was told to feed them well, because he saw that there's a different spirit in these guys, and he wanted them to become enhancement for his kingdom. At that time, it was Darius. And here was Daniel. He called come, fellow, come. I understand that the king has given you commandment that we must eat particular food and drink particular wine so we can be fattened up and we can be, perked up. But Daniel said, I want you to give me opportunity to eat my own food. And the man said, but I can't. Because if the king only heard that, I die. I'll be dead. You cannot defy the king order. Then I said, you don't have to die. Then I said, I tell you something. You just give me a few days. Give me a few days and let me eat what I want to eat. And you can be assured that I will look better and more fit and more trim than all those who eat in the king's luxurious food. And the man said, okay, take your word, go ahead. And at the end of the days, Daniel was more healthy and vibrant and fit all the others. You see, beloved, Daniel did not wait until you had given the ultimatum and he had to make up his mind. And had to scratch his head and say, oh God, help me now, please. Sleepless night. Daniel purpose. That was a foregone conclusion. He purposed. He resolved that I am not going to defile myself with the king's meat or wine. Am I making sense to you, beloved? You don't wait until you are confronted by a crisis to give yourself pressure when folk are breathing down your neck and giving you ultimatum. At that time, you may find yourself reacting and doing things which you would not have normally done given more relaxed circumstances. My time has gone a long time. Let me wind up here. Not even quarter through it yet. But we today are enjoying the liberty of the church of the Lord because some people had to make a resolve. A guy called Martin Luther, that great reformer of the church, out of his stand for God, we got the Protestant religion, also the Protestant organization. And today, out of that became the Pentecostals and the and the Moravian and all the other things. Because one man, when you're given an ultimatum to be excommunicated and to be killed, to be burned at the stake, Martin Luther purposed in his heart that he is not going to bow and do what God didn't tell him to do in the Word. He read the scripture, the just shall live by faith. And don't forget, Martin Luther was not a member in the pew. He was a cardinal. He was a high churchman, a cardinal. And he knew what the circumstances would be. But he did not want to up against a wall and all that going from right and left and center and above and to put pressure. No, he did not wait for that. When they brought him to the Diet of Worms, like the parliament in Germany, and they threatened him to burn his works, to burn his book, and to burn him at the stake, he looked at them and said, "Gentlemen, it is not right, neither is it safe for a man to go against the dictates of his conscience." He said, "I cannot and I will not bow. So help me God, here I stand." And the remainder is history. Martin Luther did not wait until the screws were tightened and he was actually at his wit's end. He made a requirement of his own self that when the pressure comes, this is how I will behave. This is the stand I'm going to take. And as I come to the end of this little part here now, we don't know that it'll take place in 2021, beloved. We don't know. We don't know. I'll have enough time to come to a conclusion there on Sunday morning. But let me just give you a small part. We don't know if we're going to have our religious liberty actually infringed. We don't know. We don't know if the economy will take a nosedive, further nosedive. We don't know. If more companies are going to close down, we don't know. I hope you don't misunderstand me here. We don't know if some people will become too big for their shoes and try to interfere with the liberty of the church. We don't know. You see, beloved, we got to be very careful. We are talking about humanity here, people who don't have a born-again experience. And who knows, they have gone so far to shut the church down for months. You can't meet in the church. And they may feel that they have the liberty to interfere further in the liberty of the church. We are talking about men who have a deceitful heart. The church had not rebelled. But in the first place, when a man can interfere with the church and tell you can't go to church, you can't have services. And that went on for months. And the church said, yes. He may well feel that he can go further and tell you, shut the doors. If that happens, we got to resolve now. Before that scenario comes, before that probability arises, we got to be resolved that if a man dare to go that far, what our stand is going to be. Am I making sense? We got to be resolved now that come what may, come what June, if you're going to interfere with my liberty to serve my God, I got to be resolved now what my stand is going to be. And you got to resolve now what your stand is going to be. You don't wait until they pass the legislation. You have to resolve before it is passed that if they do pass it, this is what I will do. They got to put me in jail or even kill me, because nobody going to defeat my liberty in serving my God. In such time, what comes forth, beloved, is not politics. What comes is not PNM or UNC. What comes is my relationship with God. And nobody is going to interfere with that. I am resolved now that what my action is going to be. And you got to understand, whatever befalls us, whatever happens in the new year, you got to be resolved now. What your response is going to be. That if I lose my job, I'm not going to become a gambler. I'm not going to play wee-wee. I'm not going to play, what, something too? Check two? Okay, something two anyhow. Pick two. I'm going to pick no two, no four, no five or six. I'm going to pick Jesus. We got to resolve. We got to resolve. That's what I'm talking about. Resolve, resolve, resolve. A resolute determination that whatever happens, my stand for God is not up for negotiation. My stand for God is not up for discussion. My stand for God remains Jesus. I'll go through with thee. Beloved, I'm only a quarter through this sermon. Only a quarter through. And I want you to be here on Sunday morning. I'll take enough time to make sure we complete it on Sunday morning. I haven't touched the part where you come in yet. This was just simply like the introduction, to be frank with you. But I want you to know that I believe that you have gotten something to start the year with. Resolve, 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 resolve. Like Job said, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. And my wife read from Habakkuk chapter 3. Though there is no stall, there is no vine, there is no... I mark you, Habakkuk was not talking about an existing scenario. He said, if it happens that there are no vine bearing fruit, if it happens that there's no ox in the stall, if it happened that there's no reproduction, if it happened, he said, I will yet, praise God, I will joy. I'm not going to wait until the hard time comes to try to make up my mind. While the hard time does not come, if perchance the hard time comes, I have resolved before it came that my stand will be to joy in God and rejoice in the God of my salvation. That is what resolve does. When you do that, nobody dictates to you. Nobody treats you like a yo-yo on a string. Nobody treats you like if you are on a leash where they can lead you with a hook in your mouth. You have a mind of your own. And God is saying for the coming year, that is what he wants from you. Are you prepared to make that resolve now? Jesus, whatever befalls me, I will go through with you. Could we all stand, please?